Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Last weekend, the National Union of Workers in Hospital Support and Allied Services organised a motorcycle convoy of contract hospital cleaners riding from Penang to Putrajaya. The objective? To deliver a memo to the Health Minister Kari Jamaluddin with a plea for government action to protect the rights of contract cleaners working at public hospitals. But will the precarious lives of janitors change, or will the government wash their hands of this matter as one between workers and their companies? Our first guest tonight is President of the National Union of Workers in Hospital Support and Allied Services, Rozia Muhammad Hashim. Puan Rozia, adakah puan rasa yang hak pekerja dan kebajikan pekerja kontrak diambil ringan oleh pihak majikan dan kerajaan? Apa yang puan rasa tidak adil tentang sistem kontrak yang sedia ada?
Saya rasa memang pihak majikan ada mengabaikan pekerja-pekerja walau sebab ramai pekerja yang bekerja selama 20 tahun ke atas tak ada kenaikan gaji. Mengikut gaji minima hanya 1,200 saja. Setiap kali syarikat ditukar, kami akan hilang faedah yang sebelumnya kami dapat. Contohnya kami pekerja pembersihan ada 3 shift. 7-3, 3-11 dan 11-7. Tapi sekarang ditambah masa sejam. Jadi 7-4, 1-10 dan 10-7. Tak berbaloi dengan gaji sebab kita bekerja di tempat dan hospital yang sama selama bertahun-tahun. Tapi tiada kenaikan gaji. Setiap kali...
Puan Rozia, boleh memberitahu kepada kita bagaimana majikan boleh menetapkan gaji pada tahap yang minima dan tidak menaikkan gaji itu? Itu tak masuk akal, kan?
Ya, betul. Bagi saya tak masuk akal lah sebab saya, kan kawan-kawan saya ada yang dah bekerja sampai 15 tahun ke atas, 20 tahun ke atas. Di tempat yang sama. Jadi kami boleh jadikan sebagai pekerja tetap. Tapi setiap kali syarikat bertukar, kami akan jadi pekerja baru. Dengan sistem yang baru, dengan kehilangan faedah.
Dah berapa kali syarikat bertukar?
Selama saya bekerja, saya 3 syarikat bertukar.
Puan Rozia, boleh saya tahu apa cabaran yang puan mengalami untuk menubuhkan persatuan pekerja? Adakah majikan meletak apa-apa halangan atau menyokong hak pekerja?
Saya memang banyak mengalami halangan lah sewaktu menubuhkan union di peringkat swasta, di hospital kan. Ada syarikat yang mengugut pekerja, mengatakan bahawa siapa masuk union, masuk kesatuan akan dibuang kerja. Syarikat yang terbaru ni mengatakan bahawa union tidak ada, union sudah mati. Tapi saya berusaha meraih sokongan dan kepercayaan dari kawan-kawan. Memang ambil masa yang agak lama lah.
Puan Rozia, tadi Puan ada kata yang macam kerja tu tak berbaloi dengan tak setara, gaji tak setara dengan kerja yang dibuat, pendapatan tak setara sebab dapat gaji minima. Macam mana dengan aspek lain seperti macam cuti sakit, hari rehat, kerja overtime, kerja lebih masa, semua tu dapat bayaran setimpal ke?
Syarikat baru ni bayar kami kurang daripada yang sebelumnya. Sekarang kami bekerja masuk 1, balik 10 malam, hanya dibayar 5 jam kira overtime. Overtime biasa dibayar 5 jam.
Puan Rozia, gaji sekarang kurang daripada dulu. Kira sekarang dalam zaman pandemik ni dengan kerja yang penting untuk pembersihan hospital, masih lagi dibayar kurang daripada yang sebelum ni?
Sebelum ni ikut gaji minima 1,200 saja. Tapi overtime dia bayar kurang. Dia bayar 5 jam.
Puan Rozia, boleh saya tanya tentang kempen ni ya, naik motor dari Penang ke Putrajaya. Adakah tuntutan Puan Rozia dan rakan-rakan sekerja hanya terhadap kerajaan atau juga terhadap majikan untuk mengenali sistem yang lebih adil?
Ya, saya berharap tuntutan kami mendapat perhatian dari kedua-dua pihak lah kan. Terutama dari kerajaan lah, sebab kerajaan yang membuka tender atau memberi peluang kontrak kepada syarikat-syarikat ni. Okey.
So apa yang Puan Rozia ingin kan pihak kerajaan respon kepada memorandum konvoi ni?
Saya harap selepas berkonvoi sejauh 530 kilometer ni, saya harap dapatlah tuntutan kami itu dilaksanakan dengan kadar segera. Sebab kami rasa dah terlalu lama merana dengan sistem kontrak yang banyak menindas pekerja bawahan seperti kami.
Okay. Puan Rozia, terima kasih ya.
Yes.
That was Rozia Muhammad Hashim, President of the National Union of Workers in Hospital Support and Allied Services. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this, but we will be back with more on this topic, so stay tuned.
Rangkaian memang menakjubkan. Ia hubungkan kita, corakkan insan untuk kita gagah mara. Malah sedia menggendong aspirasi kita. Tak kira siapa, di mana kita berada atau cita-cita. Kita mungkin dari rangkaian berbeza. Bersama, kita kuasakan rangkaian Malaysia yang sentiasa sedia melakar masa depan.
Welcome to what is the most revered occasion in the winter sport. It's an event of tradition, of pedigree, the Olympic Winter Games of Beijing 2022.
All the training, all the build-up, all the expectation, all the anticipation, and now the release of competition.
This is where it all counts. Sukan Olimpik musim sejuk Beijing 2022 secara langsung di Astro Supersport dan Astro Go. Istimewa untuk anda tahun baharu lunar ini. Legenda aksi suka ramai.
Hasan Wong Fei
dalam blockbuster ikonik. Dengan gaya yang tersendiri. Stream bila-bila masa on demand. Pesta kungfu dihidangkan untuk anda sekeluarga. Woohoo Action di saluran 338 dan Astro Go.
Ingin dapatkan yang terkini dari Sarawak dan Sabah? Pastikan kita nangga AWANI Borneo setiap hari jam 7 malam di Astro AWANI.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. With me is Sharad Kutin. If you've just joined us, however, we're discussing how to better protect the rights and welfare of our invisible frontliners, contract hospital cleaners. Let's speak now to Sarasvati Muthu. She's the Executive Secretary of the National Union for Workers in Hospital Support and Allied Services. Saras, can I ask you whether, the heart of the matter, the fact that contract hospital cleaners face the issue of low pay, they face hostile working environments, they face rights exploitation. Did that happen even before the pandemic? And I'm just wondering, when contract workers started to organize to demand that their rights be better protected?
Yeah. Hi, good evening. First of all, I would like to say it was a victory for the brave cleaners who rode 530 kilometers. It was a historical moment to see the minister recognizing that cleaners are also frontliners. Okay, the heart of the dispute is contract system is wrongfully used for jobs that are permanent. Since support services became privatized, these workers have been working in same government hospital doing same job. And they got all the benefits, pay increase, bonus, allowances, they can get a bank loan and so on. Because of contract system, every 2 or 3 years, the contract changes and the workers become new workers. They lose all their seniority and benefits. Like worker may work 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, or getting only RM1,200 annual leave, PH, NCA, and other allowances also cut because of the contract system. Permanent work is being dressed up as temporary work. Government always talks about lifting people out of poverty, shared prosperity, inclusive society by 2030. But the government must change the law, but the contract system contradicts this. The contract system breeds poverty, put these workers under modern slavery. Being UN Berhad being principal management, Ajanta is a Medicine Berhad, a concessionaire having contract with government, and they are subcontractor Ajanta UMS. And they are using contract system and oppressing the worker in the name of contract. The permanent workers become contract workers, and they are suppressed, oppressed, and their seniority is taken away from them.
Okay, Saras, can I ask? Sorry, can I just come back to Melissa's question, right? So the issue of frontliners became really big during the pandemic, and it continues to be an important issue. Yeah. Even before the pandemic, this system existed, yes? And at that point, was there any attempt to organize workers? Melissa's question was, how long has organizing workers in this sector gone on for? And what kind of response have you been getting from government, from these companies, to the kind of issues that you point out?
Yeah, this union was there since 1997. So we activated in 2016, and they've been, and the workers were, loudly telling us that this contract system is against them and they're losing all the benefits. So we have been sending 5 memorandums since 2015, 5 memorandums to government, to the health ministry, but nothing has happened. And then we're also organizing in the way of union. But then since 1997, the union was formed, we were able to sign the first CA with a former subcontractor in 2019, October. Then in 2020, the new company, so-called Ajanta UMS came and they say, no to union. But then the union busting, they did a lot of rampant union busting, harassing the workers, and they're telling if you're in the union, we will kick you out, and they're changing them, and they change the working hour, and also giving them so much of work, changing them into 4 or 5 places every day, so that this Union Busting Act constitutes denial of rights under the IR Act 1967, and our government has signed in ILO Convention 98 right to on the organized and collective bargaining. But then this so-called GLC company, which is openly, blatantly oppressing the workers, and we have made more than 30 complaints in IR department, but the company still continuing with the harassment. That's what our second demand is. Hentikan pemerasan kesatuan. Let me stop union busting. These are the reasons.
Right. So, I do want to ask you this. So it's very interesting because what you're pointing to is actually a kind of connection between government and the private sector and these private, contract companies. I want to ask you, considering the history that you just laid out for us, what chance is that the government will seriously take into consideration the demands and actually change things? Because somebody is benefiting greatly from this current system. Somebody's making lots of money on the backs of workers. Why should they now change it?
Yeah, they have to change it. They have to change it. If I do understand, in the long term, because the contract system, it very clearly said that it is an abusive system which creates modern slavery, and it also creates bonded slavery with 1,200 without looking at their seniority. Every 3 years, a new company comes in. They take away all their benefits, okay? So we are telling the government, in the long term, we can call for the contract system to be abolished. If they say pension cost is high, etc., say the biggest chunk of our pension actually goes to MPs and grade A officials. Lower income salary won't cost much. So we want the government to stop contracting out, because it is creating a circle of people who are in the poverty line for long. They cannot come out. It is against the humanity, against the workers' rights. It's against the International Labour Organization law. Very clear. Right. This is what we are fighting for. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate your time and your insights. Saraswati Muthu, Executive Secretary of the National Union of Workers in Hospital Support and Allied Services. Another quick break on Consider This. We will be back with more.
Selamat datang ke Yang Mana Satu Idaman You. Jika anda ada RM109, mana satu yang anda mahu? 90 saluran Astro atau internet laju? Persoalannya, kenapa you kena pilih kalau semuanya ada dengan bundle Jimat, internet laju dan 90 saluran Astro hanya RM109 sebulan sahaja? Kan? Call 03-7481-3000 sebelum promosi habis.
Untuk memastikan Malaysia ada ke depan,
kita boleh hentikan spekulasi adalah Melayu
balik kepada support system. This is orang yang membuat polisi.
Kalau itu yang dikehendaki, fine. Mungkin kita berbeza pandangan.
Tapi kita mempunyai kuasa yang boleh menentukan budaya di masa hadapan.
Polisi yang mesra wanita sudah tentu dia akan datang daripada pemimpin wanita.
Dah menyusahkan saya hari ini.
Tekanan buat semua juri.
Masalahnya jadi confused.
Tekaan demi tekaan.
Suka hati aku lah aku yang cakap. I don't like this lah.
Semakin hangat.
The Mask Singer Malaysia. Kalau ingat orang bayar tiket untuk tengok konsert awak pada minggu ini.
Semakin hebat. The Mask Singer Malaysia di Astro Warna dan aplikasi Astro Go.
Banyak yang boleh anda pelajari di Astro AWANI link, and the best thing, it's all free. Pertama, kita ada webinar where we focus on the bigger picture featuring the experts of experts helping your future planning and decision making. Kemudian kita ada workshop di mana kita fokus kepada ilmu praktikal yang boleh digunakan serta merta. How to this, how to that. You get the picture, right? Kemudian kita ada Financial Freedom Series dan Health Matters, helping you with your wealth and your health. Semua ini di www.link.astroawani.com. Daftar sekarang.
Hello, thank you for staying with Shrad and I on Consider This. Let's speak now to Mira Samantha. She is an executive committee member of the Association of Women Lawyers. Mira, we understand that most workers in the contract hospital cleaners or janitorial sector are women. Many are, in fact, single mothers, and I understand that many are also from the B40 segment. I'm just wondering if you could take a look at all these different variables and whether this would be considered a form of gender-based discrimination, particularly in the workplace.
Okay, before I could answer that question directly, I just want to give a broader explanation first. You know, in Malaysia's bid for its place in the Human Rights Council, and they want to see. I think I'm glad that has happened, because they will need to justify nationally on the human rights standards that they have on hospital cleaners. So let's look at the social rights of the social protection for marginalized groups such as hospital cleaners. You know, when you talk to employers, most employers complain about human rights recognition, as it means higher compliance costs, which translates to lower profits. And that's no different in Malaysia. So let's go back to hospital cleaners. What has COVID-19 pandemic taught us? It has taught us actually that discrimination in policies and governance has further caused the marginalized to suffer due to rooted injustice and inequality. So our hospital cleaners keep our hospitals clean and make it safe, a safe environment for the sick and needy. Whether it's pandemic or not, that's what they do. Their hard work in the hospitals, I mean, we are unable to function without them because they provide a clean, safe environment. So they actually are protecting us to keep us safe. So why is it that we do not protect those who protect us when we are ill? And we know.
So, Mira, sorry, Mira, can I answer that question? Is it simply a question of profits? Do we see, because in the last two interviews we did, we see a very cynical system, right? A system that can hire somebody for 20 years at the same hospital and keep that worker at 1,200 ringgit wages. There is collusion, is there not, between government and private companies to make super profits off the back of workers? Isn't it as simple as that?
It is, but then you must have an understanding of why they choose these group of people. You exploit certain groups. Not all groups are exploited, but there is gender discrimination, and it's a class issue, because cleaning has always been considered as one of the lowest working class positions in society. They are the bottom rank. So majority of our hospital cleaners are women. I mean, if you look at the 50,000 hospital cleaners that there are, 85% are women. And these women are mainly single women, B40 women. I'm sure Cyrus would have explained all that to you. So they are on poverty line, they have low educational levels, and perhaps poor knowledge of the laws and policies. They lack skills, no upward mobility. All these make them vulnerable to abuse. And unlike doctors and nurses who are also in the hospital line, but they are recognized as frontliners, as opposed to hospital cleaners who are not recognized as frontliners because they are marginalized. Sorry.
Right. So, sorry, Mira, I just want to ask you, what is the role of government in this? You talked a little bit about upholding human rights, but I'm just wondering, as you know, the union is asking for, is absorption into the civil service, into government service, is that going to be the solution to the precarious work conditions that they are currently facing?
I think there's three. The demands made by SARAs and the hospital cleaners are threefold. The first one is they want to eliminate contracting out. So what does that mean? They want to eliminate privatization. That's the root cause of injustice, I think, privatization. And if you really, that is why all these problems started since the 90s. When I think it was during Mahathir's time, when every single contractor was privatized. It's not just hospital cleaners, the janitors, the gardeners, and a few others within the hospital system. They all have been privatized. And if you look closely, they all suffer from the fact that they are from the marginalized community, B40, either they are migrant or women, and they come from poor economic backgrounds. So because they are vulnerable, they are unable to unionize, they are unable to become empowered. If they try to become part of the union, they are harassed, so they fear for their jobs, security of tenure. So the employers definitely know all this, and they play on this, and they exploit that. That is the reason. So privatization has been the problem. But I think Zainal Anwar, during her oral judgment, during the Women's Tribunal, did mention that there's complete complicity on the blatant violation of labor rights. There is lack of transparency in the procurement process, absence of demand for decent labor standards by all the GLCs, and also that there are political connections in individuals who are involved in this. So it is actually the government, it is within the government's powers when they award concessions to these concessionaires and subcontracting them out.
Okay, so Mira, we have just about a minute left. I want to ask you this question: what's going to move the needle on this? Because it's a long-standing issue. Government, as you say, it's government policy. It's Dr. Mahathir's grand plan to privatize and following the kind of Thatcherite model. Now, the question is, what will make the government change the way it thinks?
Okay, that is the
legal action. Is it political action?
Ministry of Health has to take immediate steps to award concessions to those companies that will abide by human rights standards, decent pay, and all the conditions that we've talked about. And Ministry of Human Resources also has to intervene and establish fixed steps to ensure that hospital cleaners are given fair terms of contract and not fixed term contracts, because there are cases to say that fixed term contracts they did want for ages are actually permanent employees. You cannot run away with that. They are closing their eyes. They have to lift the corporate veil and see that these are the kind of cases that the government has been closing its eye on. So they cannot run away from this. That is the only way that Ministry of Health has to intervene. Ministry of Human Resources has to intervene. That is my answer. That is short term. But in long term, I think, or medium term, you have to amend the Employment Act. That is right. That is true.
Mira, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Mira Samantha there from the Association of Women Lawyers, and that wraps up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.